Welcome to another episode of Unlocking Our Code podcast. In today's episode, we will explore the impact of negative thought patterns, their emotional impact, and how to restructure them. Tonight, we have the honor to introduce Leo Jimenez. Leo is certified in cognitive restructuring, substance abuse disorder, anger management, and family relations. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Hey.
And hi, Lou.
Hi.
How's everyone doing?
Just getting ready for the holidays. I mean, Christmas is in 2 days.
Yeah.
It's like pretty much tomorrow.
Yep.
So the whole hecticness of it. But today we're here. We're excited. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear everything you have to say. I want to learn.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Once again, thank you for the invitation. I'm excited. This is what I love to do. This is a topic that, as a man, it was eye-opening. It was an eye-opening experience to realize that, wow, I was holding back on all this stuff, And now that I see it, I was like, okay, now we got to go out and teach everyone else.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for saying yes to our invitation. Mm-hmm. Coach Leo, that's how I call him. I've known Coach Leo for a couple of years already, and since I met him, it's been a pleasure to get to know him, and just now to be able to have him on the podcast and share his wisdom is just an honor. So thank you so much, Coach Leo.
Thank you again. Thank you.
And tonight's topic is so important because when a piece of information can trigger mindfulness and awareness to make a change in someone's life for the better, not only does the person begin to heal, but it also helps heal the collective and the planet. So it's why this topic that we're bringing up tonight, it's super important for us. We really have a lot of information to share. And I want to begin on negative thought patterns, like the roots of negative thought patterns, Coach Leo.
Okay.
I have here a little bit of information that says that negative thoughts are patterns of thinking that focus on fear, doubt, failure, or self-criticism. They often distort reality and can lead to feelings of unhappiness, anxiety, and even self-sabotage.
Absolutely. A negative thought pattern. Before we even get to the whole negative thought pattern, sometimes we don't realize it's a negative thought pattern because our whole life we've been living with this thought, and it's just been part of our life. It's something we don't even think about. It's something that's just we're impulsive about, and just like, oh yeah, this happened, so this triggers this, and that's because I've been told my whole life that this is what it is, and we have to identify the fact that it's actually have a negative impact in our lives. Sometimes we just go about it and think that's just the way it is. It's not a negative thought pattern. That's just the way it is. It's not till you slow down, stop, and analyze the situation and say, hey, there's something I could do about myself. Let me empower myself and try to challenge this thought. Or why am I feeling like this? Mm-hmm. That we start seeing the change in ourselves. But so it starts with the way we think and with identifying first that it has a negative impact on ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And before you became aware of all these of negative thought patterns and you had all this wisdom, was there a time in your life where you didn't have the wisdom of the negative pattern?
Oh, absolutely. People say, certain moments of the day ruins my day. And I used to say, man, this ruined my day. It really doesn't ruin your day. It that moment, maybe, but it really doesn't ruin your day. For example, a simple one, just holding the door open for someone, holding the door for someone. I had the expectation, the false expectation that everybody should say thank you. Mm-hmm. So if somebody would walk by the door and wouldn't say thank you, it would bug me, and I would get upset. Not knowing that I don't know what that other person is going through, I don't know what that kind of news that person just got, how their day is going or what, and who am I to them? They don't even know me. They shouldn't have to say thank you, but that's an example that I use all the time that says, man, like I put an expectation on someone and I let that person affect me, which then becomes a negative thought, which then triggers my emotion and I would get angry. So yeah, absolutely. It wasn't until I stopped, identified the scenario, identified the feeling, what it would make me feel, that I said, okay, so why do I let it affect me like this? You know, and it became something negative. And I was like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that no more. So I don't put that expectation on somebody just because I hold the door on them, you know?
Yeah, for sure. You take responsibility of your own emotions and your own behaviors and your own responses.
We can't blame others for the way we react to
Right.
things, you know, that we made that choice ourselves.
Do you feel like there was a pivotal point in your life that like that brought you to this point in your life where you said, I need to change the way I think? Was there like a pivotal moment, or was there like a time frame in your life where you're like, something is just, where you felt that awareness where you're like, it's coming from me at this point. It's not, I can't even blame anybody else anymore, you know?
You know what it was? Growing up in a household that I grew in, I always said there were certain things that I didn't want to be like my father.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't want to be like him. I don't want to be like him. Or there was things that he did growing up that I would see and said, you know, when I grow up and I'm a dad, I don't want to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, if I'm in a relationship, I don't want to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in my first serious relationship, I found myself being that person, you know, because that was the learned behavior. That was the learned process that I had learned growing up. I had seen that all my life. So how do I expect something different if that's everything that I saw? So when that happened, and I saw myself in that situation, I was like, wow, I just turned into my dad. The person that I said I wasn't going to be, I'm him, you know? Then I started working, you know, in the rehabilitative programs, in the rehabilitative field, and I started seeing that. And that's when the light bulb went up, and I was like, oh, hey, there it is. You know, I can change this. I have the power to change this, you know?
Wow.
But first I have to identify it first and realize that it had a negative impact in my life to say, oh, okay, so what do we have to do now? And sometimes the hardest part, and I'm going to speak on the side of the men, was to say, I need help.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Just to say,
Huge.
can someone help me out here?
Yeah.
What's going on here? How can I fix
It's
this?
like it's the being vulnerable part, right? For the man.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It's just, or you know what? It also was just not knowing how to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes all it takes is for you to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, can you help me out here? You know, and it's like, oh yeah, absolutely. But just the fear, the vulnerability
Yeah.
and the embarrassment of saying, oh, I'm actually asking for help. You know, it's big. It's big. It's big. And I don't want to say just in men in general. I think just in humans in general, you know what I mean? Women and men, sometimes we have that pride about us that I can handle it on my own, you know?
Why do you believe that it's a little harder for men, now that we're in that topic, to ask for help, express themselves, just voice like that there's something internal?
I'm going to say yes, because I am a man, and because I've lived through it. You know, obviously I haven't lived through a life of a woman, so I don't know or tell you what it was. But as a man growing up in a household where machismo was kind of running the house, I can tell you that yes, it was hard. It was definitely challenging.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it's like one of those things where you mentioned beliefs and learned behaviors, and we've spoken about it before, where those, you know, that's what we want to do in this podcast, is challenge people's beliefs, because we do everything based on those beliefs. Those were rooted in us. Those were the seeds that were planted. And a lot of us don't have that awareness, where it's like almost every decision we make as adults comes from these roots that were planted since we were little, right? And so to be able to cut those off, or challenge your beliefs, you know, that belief system, especially for men, like what you mentioned, machismo, is huge.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And men aren't supposed to, you know, now that I'm becoming more aware, I see it, and I can see it more from a place of like compassion, because it is a learned behavior. It is something that you guys men are supposed to cry. Men are supposed to, like, you guys are the ones who are supposed to be able to handle all this shit. You guys are the one, the strength. You guys are supposed to be the muscle. You guys are supposed to be the ones that just face all the fears and not complain, not say I can't, not say, I won't. You like not ask for help, not ask for no.
Right.
You just have to figure it out, and right. And so now that I'm starting to be able to like really step back, and instead of like just judging like a man for it's like, man, now I can see it from a place of compassion where I'm like, that's a lot of shit for you guys to carry.
It is. And it's funny you say that, because that's how I feel now. Like, even being out on the streets and seeing two men argue over something dumb, or the other guy squaring up on the other guy.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, really? Like, but you step back, you see it, and you're like, I don't know what he's dealing with. I don't know what he is. And everything with our thought process, everything with that comes with our actions, everything stems from that belief system. I'm a big believer in that, and I've done some work on it with my life, with a lot of other people's lives. We've backtracked and said, okay, where did this come from? Let's dig. Get that shovel out and let's start digging. And some people are scared of that, though. And some people are like, no, because it's a painful spot to be sometimes. But when you do and you break through that, you're like, wow, wow, this is amazing. The fact that, and you have the people that were willing to do it, and you have the people that are just like, no, I'm okay, being me.
And that's what you do right now, right? You help you deal with men, right? That's what you're helping, coaching along the way and stuff like that. So do you find yourself struggling to break through that?
Oh, definitely. And actually, one of a friend who's now a friend of mine, Frankie, I was telling him, we were having a conversation about feelings and all that, and I was asking him, I said, the toughest part for me was dealing with resistance. And he said, you know what, coach? I don't think it was resistance that we were dealing with. And I said, really? He goes, it was ignorance. He goes, and I said, what do you mean ignorance? He's like, well, I'll put it to you like this. He goes, if it wasn't before I came to this program, he goes, I only knew mad, sad, and happy as emotions. There's a lot of emotions out there. There is ton of emotions out there. And we used to give the guys a sheet and said, how do you feel today, with all these faces? And there were words there that they're like, well, what is this supposed to feel like? Or what is this like? So I understood what he was talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of us are just, we're either mad, we're happy, or we're sad. And that's it. That's it. And nowadays you see it in children's cartoons. And at first, some of these cartoons, they say, well, I can't talk right now. I'm sad, or I'm upset right now. Leave me alone. They're identifying emotions, and, but us as parents, what do we say? Don't watch that. He's just a chillon. He's a crybaby. You know what I mean? And it goes back to, because that's how we were brought up, and that was part of not being able to identify. I'm anxious. I'm nervous. I'm stressed, and identifying the feeling that comes with being stressed, or being anxious, or being emotions. You're fidgeting with your fingers, you're tapping your foot, whatever it is. That's something that should come up and say, okay, I know how I'm feeling. I know what I'm feeling now. Okay, this is the approach I got to take. So definitely.
Wow.
That's true.
Good.
Yeah, that's good information right there.
Great information. So when it comes to negative thoughts, Coach Leo, if we start at the root, what do you believe is the root, the birth of a negative thought? After you've been aware, okay, I'm aware that I have a lot of negative thoughts running through my mind, right? Because like you said, awareness is first. That's usually the advice I give too. If you don't have awareness of something, you can't start repairing anything because you're not aware that there's any type of issue. So let's say the person's already identified there's a lot of negative thoughts going through my mind. What do you think the root of that is? Where is the negative thought even born?
So for me, it comes from, and once again, bringing out that shovel and doing the digging and figuring out what belief made me get that thought and that emotion going. So let's go back. So, for example, going back to the pride thing, like, and I'm going to share stories that were shared with me, so you guys can see how that affected it, and it was told to me firsthand by the individual. But this individual was expressing himself about the belief of a man takes care of his family first, and everything else is after, right? So we're going to protect our family at our cost. So real quick through the scenario, it's a Friday night. He's home. Nothing's wrong. He's hanging out. His sister decides to go to a party. His sister goes to a party, comes back crying, and he asks, what happened? Well, she was at a party. Somebody broke a bottle over her head. She had a chipote, she had a bump in her head. And, now when he takes that step back and realizing that his pride got his best of him, he says, my sister was perfectly fine. Nothing was wrong with her. She was standing here in front of me. She was crying. Okay, she'll get over it. My parents were here. They could have picked up the phone and called the police and said, hey, so-and-so happened at this party or whatever. But because his pride and his belief said, I got to take care of my family. And if I don't do something about this, people are going to think that I'm weak. Got up, went to the party. A person ended up dead, unfortunately. And he ended up losing 25 years of his life.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Over a negative thought that stemmed from a belief that said he had to take care of his family.
And imagine, where was the seed? It's like there was a seed planted on what point of his life that grew into this belief, right? Where was the seed planted? Most of the time in childhood. Most of the time our caregivers, the people around us that have the most influence. And it's so crazy that you're saying that story, because I've heard the story before. Somebody told me the story that knew the guy, the male,
The individual, yeah.
the individual, and it always stuck to me too. It's crazy that you're saying that story, and it's so true how one belief can just take you to all these places, right? And that belief of family over everything is one on its own. That's a belief that I go against at all times.
Right.
Ever since I began my healing journey, that was the number one belief I started tackling, because I was like, this is one of the beliefs that's hurting me the most.
Absolutely. Sometimes you got to say, it's okay. I'll keep my distance,
For sure. Yeah.
And it's hard because it's family. And, especially in our families, in our culture, in our community, the biggest thing that's fed to us is family, and anything with family. But it's hard. It's not easy. And I think the root of it comes from our belief system. I think our belief system runs our lives. It really does, because then we start prioritizing things in life.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. How and why can one single negative thought become a whole pattern of negative thoughts? So let's say, obviously we began with one,
right?
How did that one become 100 negative thoughts that now run in our mind over and over and over and over on a daily basis?
It becomes a lifestyle, and then that's that person that everybody says, don't talk to him. He's always mad. That person is crazy. He's just negative all the time, so it becomes a lifestyle. People that's just who I am, and that's it. But that comes back. Let's backtrack again. That comes from your belief, your belief that, I am who I am and nobody's going to change me, so then it's okay for me to walk around and be angry everywhere and, just mad dog everybody or talk about everybody or whatever it is, and that's what makes it okay for me to act this way. And when in reality it isn't, nobody's ever, just upset. That's not who you are.
Yeah.
Let's just face it.
Yeah. It's an emotion.
Right.
They're letting the emotion define them, right?
Yes.
Define who they are. Yeah. That's
why what I tell what I say, I'm like, you're allowing, like in the movie Inside Out, I'm like, you're allowing the little red angry guy to push all your buttons, and I'm like, he needs to chill. Tell him to go sit down, Yeah.
It's so cool to see that, that the way they're explaining it to us. They're basically, what they're doing is they're putting your brain on a still frame and showing you what your brain goes through, and that's exactly what it is.
It is, yeah.
It's the little angry guy wins sometimes, and he's going. He's like, no.
He's taking over your entire board, like the whole control board, you know?
And the happy one is way over there in the corner hiding,
Yeah.
you know, because they're scared.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
no,
my
for
God.
sure. Why do you think we have normalized living with negative thoughts all the time? Like it's normal. Like it's normal to live like that.
I just think that's a question that I always say. It reminds me of that saying, "Misery loves company."
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we're just miserable and we want everybody else to feel just like us.
Yep.
You know, it's just like, if I'm like this, you're gonna feel like this too.
Yeah, like the people that, you know, will come with you and like all they are is negative and they just want to bring it like they want you to like feed into it too, you know, and the cheese man then just continue going and you're just like, when you don't, you know, egg them on or you don't say nothing, they're just kind of like, okay, well, you're boring. I need to move on to the next person.
I need to find who's going to keep this fire going.
Keep the fire going. And then you're just like, I'm not even trying to entertain that. Like, you know, but it's the same people.
Yeah.
It's the same people all the time. They want to talk about the neighbor. They want to talk about the friend. They want to talk about the sister. They want to talk about the cousin. They want to talk about the other person. Like, you know, they just like the negative thoughts, or there's just no, they don't see nothing. They don't see the good in anything.
No.
They don't see the positive side in anything. And it's exhausting to be around someone like that.
They've normalized feeling that way.
Yeah.
To them, it's normal, you know, and it's sad when you think about it, that somebody normalized feeling negative,
Yeah.
you know, and it's always that person that sees the negative in everything. You can be doing something good. It's like, oh no, he must have did something to get to where he's at. Or, you know, he didn't do that right, you know, and it's
Oh, yeah, he did that, but look at that. Oh,
yeah, there's
know?
always a
Yeah.
but. Yeah. No, you're right.
Do you believe, Coach Leo, that mental illness can be developed from a tormented mind who is in a pattern of just negative thoughts all the time?
I think so.
Yeah.
I really do. I really think that it's something that can, like we said, you know, the seed was planted at a young age. You were you were taught to accept certain things that went maybe against what you felt, like myself, you know, and it leads to a life that you did not want, which then comes, you know, depression. Then comes, you know, all those comes the dark cloud, you know, and it's just walking over you, and you're upset and you're sad, and it's a snowball effect. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse until finally that snowball explodes, which is when something drastic happens in your life. You lose things, and then comes grief. You know, and this happened to me because of this and this, and pretty soon you're trying to find excuses of why things are happening to you instead of making solutions and saying, well, if this happened to me, let me try something different. It's like, no, you know, it's just, this is the way it is. It's the way it's supposed to be. And back comes to that brain, you know?
Yeah. And even what comes up for me, it's even the mind going to finding excuses. It's a pattern in itself, right? Like we're
absolutely.
so programmed to immediately go into an excuse so that we don't take responsibility of our own well-being. So we point fingers out to another person, and then it leaves it buried. And then we let it go.
It's everybody else's fault but mine.
Yep.
You know, the victim stance.
Yep.
Yeah, I did this because you did that. Or I acted this way because you guys said this. Or you guys think I'm the bad person, so I'm going to be the bad person.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see depression, anxiety coming from all of that. And them thinking that it's like a normal part of life, like it's, you know, it's been normalized, but there's just, if you know, again, bringing it back to like there's no gratitude for things that are, you know, for the good, the things that are happening to them in their lives. And then there's always finger pointing. There's just no way that mental illness will not take part in that. Like it's just, it has to. And I can envision certain people like in my life that I feel are very deep in like in this pattern that we're talking about, like negative thoughts. And we've discussed them feeling depressed and having anxiety and then just feeling like they're like in the cycle that they can never get out of. And then they say like, oh, it's because I always have this bad luck. It's always bad luck. It's always me. And yeah, there's just no way you can stay in that pattern and not deal with depression and anxiety. And then, you know, like it can lead to like that, you know, it can lead to like just other like stuff like bipolar, schizophrenia, because it's like all affecting. There's no way that the mind can continue that way.
It's not, the mind's not healthy.
And it takes you to unhealthy places, not only within yourself, but within your relationships with a significant other, with your children, with just coworkers, anywhere. It becomes toxic. You're just, walking around just upset.
Yeah.
And then they probably they're coping with things that they're not supposed to be coping with, right? Alcohol, drugs, you fall into all this other stuff that is just, you're just trying to like numb.
Yeah, just suppress it. Just keep it there. You know what I mean? And it's going to suppress it while that drug or that alcohol kicks in. But as soon as it wears off, you're right back to square one.
Oh man, that gives me this vision of like, addiction. You have a lot of like expertise on that, but addiction being an issue because we're just trying to suppress and suppress and suppress and suppress and suppress.
Or I want to feel a certain way.
Or I want to feel, the opposite of that. Yeah. That's a
big one, it's in life we need balance. Too much of one thing is bad. Even working out. You work out too much, it's bad for you. It's bad for your health. You get dehydrated. You're not doing this. And you got to find the balance. Whatever it is you're doing, there has to be a balance. And I think back, I have an uncle of mine that used to tell me that, everything in excess is bad for you. And I was like, what is this guy talking about? All those things that I was told I'm telling you, I think I was getting ready for this field because that uncle of mine, man, he was awesome. And he would always tell me these things. And I was like, what does he mean by that? Like, and everything, in excess, whatever you do in excess is bad for you, and I was like, but now that I see it, it's like, you're looking for balance in life. You're looking how to balance everything because no life is perfect. And we all know that, right? But we can try our best to balance ourselves out and walk around with our head up high because we all have to deal with certain issues in our life, whether, it's our personal life and our relationships, whatever it is, but you just got to keep pushing and find a solution to keep working and say, I need help.
Yeah. Big one, big one, right? What do you think triggers negative thoughts? Like, let's say we're having a good day, a good regular day, and all of a sudden, boom, we get triggered.
There's a lot of things that'll trigger us. It can be, for somebody in recovery, it can be a smell. It can be something they see on TV. Somebody with anger issues, it could just be a scenario that they see in a movie. And it's like, it brings me right back to square one, and, oh yeah, I remember that. And you see it sometimes. You see sometimes when someone watches a movie or hears a song, you see them like, oh yeah, right here. Yeah, right here. This is where it hits right here. And it's like, okay, what is it? What is it hitting? Or what is, so what is it triggering? Yeah. No, definitely. Yes. It's, the triggers, and that's for example, somebody with anger, you have to be very aware of your triggers because if you don't know your triggers, any little thing can trigger you. And if you don't know yourself and don't know that your body's telling you, hey, you're about to get upset, your ears start turning hot, your face is flush, you're tapping your knee or whatever it is, you're in for a roller coaster right here. It might be a fight, it might be an argument, it might be something. So it's identifying, back to the beginning, it's identifying what triggers you, and anything, you just got to know yourself as a person that, what triggers me, what do I like and what do I don't like, and is that avoidable? No, but once again, it's up to us to make that decision, what we want to do with it,
And even hearing you say that, I feel that in light triggers a gift because it's asking you and is giving you information to get to know yourself in a deeper level, right? It isn't, of course, it's got a shadow, which the shadow is if you're not aware of the trigger, well, you're gonna go in it for a roller coaster, like you said. But there's also a light in the trigger, in which is giving you information about you.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm sitting here smiling because I always tell people, jealousy can be healthy. There can be something healthy about jealousy.
For sure, yeah.
Right? I mean, I think if you're not jealous, that means you don't care. it's what you do with jealousy that can be unhealthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was having this discussion with a lady the other day, and she was like, no, there's no way you can have jealousy. And I'm like, no, I think there's a healthy part to it, because in the sense it's telling you, hey, you care about the situation of this person, right? Yeah. So if I'm being jealous, I genuinely care about someone. Mm-hmm. If you don't, then, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't care, but that's just certain people are different, and it's just...
it's the reaction.
It's the reaction. It's what
the
you do.
reaction
It's what you do with
that
it.
feeling.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, because jealousy can, take you to, okay, if the light of jealousy is that you're looking at your potential.
Yeah.
Right? You're looking at your potential, and that's what's triggering.
Yeah.
But you could also look at it in the dark, and it's like, well, I'm jealous because of negative reasons, right? But in light, it's like, that's my potential.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like reflecting back to me. And now it's triggering this jealousy out of me, right? So everything has a light side and everything's got a dark side. And yeah.
Yeah, but just to get back to it, I think that the triggers is identifying what triggers you. Mm-hmm. And then once you start identifying those triggers, how do you cope with it? Mm-hmm. How do you let this go through to where you're back to normal? Deep breaths, count to 10.
Yeah,
do all that good stuff,
Yeah, because if you have a person that's very reactive to everything, right? I used to be at that place myself, and it's why I speak about that. It's like, it feels like you just have all hands on 100 triggers at the same time. Any movement, one of those triggers are going to go off. And until I learned that there's such thing as triggers, that I have to identify when I'm reacting, why I'm reacting, nothing will change. You'll just be on this cycle over and over and over and over until like something will give. Something in that person's life will give. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Awareness is key. Definitely.
Because you're not only hurting yourself, but whoever is at the other end of that reaction. Those are the people that are like being affected by.
Yeah, because sometimes even the way we react, right? Like you just said, it might work for us, but it might not be healthy for the other person. So we just cause conflict, or we cause an unhealthy relationship. So it's got to make sure that how to fix your trigger is healthy for everybody, all parties involved.
And now that we're in that topic, actually, the next question was, how are relationships affected by negative thought patterns?
Oh, man.
Which we were like on it.
I think we were just right on it.
We were like on it.
But I think like in relationships, there's a lot of jealousy, envy, greed. There's a lot of manipulation that can happen when negative thought processes are there. I'm going to make you do this so I can get what I want out of this situation, which in turn, once again, goes back to you getting what you want, but it's not healthy for the other person. So it's, how can we find the balance? Balance. And, but it's those emotions that lead that negative self, thoughts to basically, like you said earlier, sabotage relationships, even with yourself. Because when mental illness kicks in, that's when you start, I'm not worth anything, whatever. Yeah. This is the way it is. I'm destined to be with nobody. I'm this, I'm that. And it's just, it goes a spiral.
Yeah. And also like, what kind of relationships do we begin to manifest as well? Not only the ones that we're already in, but we continue to call more of that into our life, right? Now we meet this new quote unquote friend who's also mirroring, right?
Just like me.
Just like me.
Yeah.
So it's an energy thing. It is.
Definitely.
You keep calling more of that into your life, or more chaos, more negative situations, because it's just reflecting back on where you're at.
And also, I used this word earlier, but it creates unrealistic expectations. I've worked with women who were a little older in their age, and they were just like, I can't find that right guy. I can't find that guy, and I'm ready for a relationship. I want a partner. I want somebody that I can be with for the rest of my life. But when I would sit there and talk to them, okay, so what are you looking for? They wanted Prince Charming. They wanted the guy in the shining armor and the white horse with the long blonde hair to come and save them and tell them, everything they wanted to hear. When in reality, that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? There's nice guys. I'm not saying that there's a lot of us out there, but sometimes we got to learn to give and take at the same time, balance. You know what I mean? Because some people have things that are their strengths and their weaknesses. And just like I have strengths and weaknesses, my partner has strengths and weaknesses, and I got to learn how to deal with it to make that relationship work. And so I would tell them that, and they'd be like, yeah, but you just don't get it, And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I don't get it, but I think you don't get it because you've been single for some time now.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sure. Do you think there's a difference between how women and men deal with negative thought patterns? Have you, I know you've worked a lot with men, but I also know that you have women in your life.
Yes, I got to work with women for a little bit in the correctional facility, in the women's area, and it was interesting because once in the program, the ones that were more in touch with their feelings and emotions were the men. The women were more like, just like, yeah, I'm here, But in reality, I think there is a difference. I think at an early age, women are more in touch with their feelings, and they're able to identify things easier than a man is, and not always the case. I'm speaking more of a personal experience from what I've experienced myself, because some people might say, no, that's not your line. But in my personal experience, I've seen that more. I've seen women be in touch a little more with their feelings than men, and it's funny because once they both realize what's going on, they handle it the same.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how maybe when you mention women, when they are more on the hardened side, I think it has a lot to do with women being so much in the masculine energy.
Yes.
That they're not, that they're just they put up all these walls and they're like, nope, we don't talk about feelings. I don't know what that is. Because they've had to be in that state for survival reasins, right?
They're jaded. They're jaded.
Had to. Yeah. And so in order to break through that, in order to break through that, it's hard. I think for me, I know TV and I kind of went through the same thing, where when we were like, God, we have to embrace our feminine energy a little bit more. And then we're like, ugh, we don't want to do that. I was like, no, we have to be, we have to be tough. We have to be we have an episode which is called what did we call that one? The boss bitch mentality, or healing the boss bitch mentality. Yeah. Because there's a moment in time where we were so stuck on that, we have to make the money. We don't need a man. We can do it ourselves. We don't ask for help. We don't do this. We don't do that. And we're just so stuck in that emotion, and that's what happens, I feel, with women that are so caught up in that masculine energy, and they just can't seem to break through that.
And I think also what has to do a lot with that is society. What we see on TV. Yeah. What is a boss bitch? You know what I mean? And it's I want to be exactly that. If I'm not doing it that way, I'm not doing it right. Yeah. When that's not the case, No. You can be the boss many ways, but society plays a big part, social media, everything.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah. No, so I can see that. And definitely women being, and then, then there's a part where women are easier in touch and tuned with their emotions. Again, because we are female and that's our thing, but then, harder for the men, again, just because it's not what you guys are supposed to be doing, right? Quote unquote, it's not what you're supposed to be showing.
Yeah, no, we can't even cry.
No.
Right? No. You can't even cry because...
Oh, man, los hombres no lloran.
Yeah, los hombres, that's a big one.
That's terrible, huh?
Horrible.
I know.
Horrible. It's horrible. Once you think about it, you're just like, man, that's sad.
You're
not letting the body feel what it's supposed to feel.
No.
You know what I mean? It's okay to feel sad and cry.
Yeah.
You know, it's man, if they would talking about crying, I lost my dog of 12 years recently, and the day that I lost him, I cried so much that day. Oh man, that was my baby. And I went somewhere that night, and I ran into a friend of mine, and she looked at me and she goes, "Have you been crying?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have." You know, I said it. And she's like, "Why?" Like the way she looked at me was like, "Why? Like, what's going on with you?" And I was like, And then I told her,
Yeah.
you know, I had lost my dog or whatever. But she's like, you're like hinchado. You're swollen in the face. You're like, I was like, yeah, I was crying like that.
Yeah.
Like, if my dad would have saw me crying like this, it would have been like, what's wrong with you, man?
But you know what? Crying is such a good way to heal your soul, to like release all the all the toxic
Yes.
stuff that we have inside that needs to come out. One of my therapy sessions that I had my therapist, she told me, she said, imagine, she goes, just like how we, use the restroom to release all the excess stuff that we need to get, all the nasty stuff we need to get rid of, we pee, we poop, whatever. She's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Crying is the same thing. It's releasing all the gunk that's inside you and your emotions, and you need to cleanse it.
Yeah, you need to purify yourself.
So if you're not crying, you're carrying all that crap inside you. You're just not releasing it.
No, yeah.
And so I think about the men perspective, because I think for us women, I'm crying like every month when I'm getting close to my period. I'm like, why am I crying? And I'm like, okay, I know why I'm crying. Yeah, it just happens. We're just emotional beings all the time. Everything hurts and everything. We want to cry for everything.
There isn't a week we don't cry. There isn't a week for me that I cry.
Always crying. But then, like, for men, it's like, when do you guys get a chance to do that?
Yeah. It's funny now that I'm in touch with my feelings.
Yes.
I could look at my kids and just start crying.
Mm-hmm. How beautiful.
To me, it's beautiful. Yeah. To me, that's like, wow, it's just the joy, the happiness that they bring me,
You're allowing yourself to feel every single emotion.
Yes. Except my last one, my little girl. Oh man, she's a hurricane. But the boys, no, but it was funny because I would sit there sometimes and I'd get home crying. My wife would be like, you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fine. It's just, I had to go through. I was just thinking about the boys when they were this or they did that or whatever. Like one of my biggest things was when I would get out of work and I would come pick them up at daycare and have them run up to you and just yell, Daddy, and with their hands out. It was just like, oh, like my heart was just like, I don't know. It was a very warm and fuzzy feeling, It was, yeah.
I'm loving that for you.
Good for you that you're able to do that, and that you keep sharing that message. It's okay to feel as men. It's okay to release. It's so important to do that. And going back to the thoughts, I wanted to touch a little bit on the connection between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. How do our thoughts affect our emotions and our behaviors?
So every action has a reaction. Okay, so before I get anywhere, right? So the way that I see it is, before I get anywhere, I have a belief system. Going back to the belief system, right? I get to my belief system. I get to a certain scenario or certain location or something happens. Now my thoughts start racing, right? Because of my belief system, my thoughts are going. Once my thoughts start going, I start feeling a certain way, so my emotions kick in. Depending on the emotion that is triggered, that I'm choosing to go with, or that, the movie, whichever character jumps in the brain and starts going, then that creates a reaction. That creates how I react to the situation. It can be positive, it can be negative, it can be crazy, but it's how that chain of reaction that you see happening. And as you start working on yourself and you start seeing the change in your life, you're like, okay, so back then I knew somebody couldn't call me this word or couldn't say this to me because, oh man, it was on. Now I know that if they call me that, what do I have to do? Take a deep breath, don't react, do this, do that, and act differently. So to me, it's that pattern. But it all stems back to that belief system, because that's what's going to trigger my thought process.
And I'm getting this image, as you said, that our belief system is like when you enter the address on a navigation system, right?
Yeah.
You put the address on the navigation system, and based on your address is going to route you to where you're going. So based on what your belief is at, that's the address. Yeah. That's how it will start sending the thoughts that go with that belief system, and then the emotions, and then the action.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, if we could, the gold is at the belief system, at the root. Is going to the root, going to the belief system and seeing, why do I believe what I believe? Because the thought It's just the reaction of the belief.
Right,
Right. It's
right,
the
right.
information coming out of the belief.
That's instilled.
Yeah.
That's instilled in the brain.
there,
That's what's
right?
in there, and that's what you believed. It's also, some people say it's a learned behavior, something that you've adapted as, you've been growing up. And sometimes it's things that you've adapted to yourself and says, hey, I like that about that person. I'm going to use that myself. And you're all these tools that you're putting in your tool belt. It's like, I'm going to use that, or I'm not going to use that, and have a consequence.
Why do you think that we get so programmed to reacting? Like, why do you believe that that's such a learned behavior that a lot of us, that was one of my biggest behaviors I have. I was like big reactor. I mean, I was always on protective mode, ready to attack, ready to do not even mess with me,
And I think it comes back to us being human beings and liking routines. We don't like change. Every time change comes around, we're feeling a little weary. Like, what's happening right now? We don't like it. We don't like the feeling of change, when in reality, change happens every day. But I think that's what it is. And some people are just want to be who they are and don't want to change. They want to live their life because this is the way I learned how to live it. I'm going to live it like this, and nothing's going to change. And so that's what happens. As human beings, we like our no change.
Yeah.
We have our habits, and this is the way it works.
Even though it doesn't feel good. Because I remember when I used to feel those emotions, it didn't feel good I didn't feel good, but there was this overpowering feeling of what you feel doesn't really matter. What matters is that you continue to do what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's amazing, man. The way the brain works, it's just it's so powerful, and what it leads us to do. I just to share a quick tidbit, and I'm an open book. I'm an open book. I don't hold nothing back. And my wife hates that, by the way. But going back to saying that, how jealous, growing up, I saw a lot of jealousy with my father, and I hated it. I always, in the back of my mind, I always said, I don't want to be like you. I don't want to be like you. I'm not going to be like you. When in my first relationship, I was very jealous. Perfect example. She'd call me and say, I'm going to go to a party. And maybe me being about an hour away, be like, oh yeah, hold on, I'll go with you. Get in the car and drive all the way over there. After I would come back and think about it, be like, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing? But I had already done it.
Yeah, done.
The damage was done. I was like,
Yeah.
man, this is crazy. Yeah.
The
So,
action.
yeah. And that's just because that's what I knew. I knew how to be jealous. So I'm going to do it,
Yeah, that was your belief system. What do you, how do you, I don't know if it's a two-part question or if my question even makes any sense, or how can you get someone to look at their belief system and challenge it? But to even tell someone what you're doing right now or what you're saying, is it just a belief? It's not real. It's not real. It's not true. It's just what you believe.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And getting them to challenge that. How do you do that? Because for me, I was questioning, when I was starting to learn all these things, I was like, but, is it a belief? But then when you really step back, you're like, holy shit, it is a belief system. That is just something that was told to me. And then now it kind of grew with me, but I have the power to not continue to believe in that.
Right.
And I get to choose my own. Right.
Right.
So how do you tell that to someone, and how do you help them?
You can't help them until they see something wrong with it. Because if they don't see nothing wrong with it, it's going to continue because there's nothing wrong with it. So why should I change something that's not wrong?
Yeah.
It's not till they identify it and they see it. It's not till you get that shovel and you start digging, and you got to hit them with facts. This has happened in your life because this, and you're doing this because this, and this has happened because of that. And until they see it, because some people have to hit the wall to know that it's there.
Yeah.
They just, no matter how many times I could sit here and tell you till I turn purple, and they won't do it. But once, oh my goodness, this happened. Been trying to tell you, But some people, and we all learn different. Some people say, well, that's how I learn. Some people, that's just how they learn their life, by trial and error.
Yeah.
Some people can take advice and say, okay, it's working for me, So we're all different.
Everybody, yeah.
But I think to answer the question, it's they have to see something wrong in it for them to actually identify that it's wrong.
Yeah. I've had situations where I'm telling people, like, where people say, I've tried this, I've tried it, I know what you're saying, this is what I've been doing, and I'm just like, okay, but how's that working for you? And they're like,
Exactly.
it's not. And I'm like,
there it is.
yeah, okay, if that doesn't answer your question, it's not working for you. Exactly. So when do we change it? When do we try something different?
But isn't it amazing how you're sitting there telling them, showing them, but they still don't see it?
They don't get it. It's just like, psh,
no. Working with at-risk youth, I saw it a lot, especially because they're in that young age and everything they hear from mom and dad is the truth, because that's who your mentors are. And challenging parents sometimes is tough.
Yeah.
Because how dare you go against my dad and my mom? They're right. So it's hard to get them to see that. But when they see it, they come back and be like, man, you were right. You were right, Leo. And I was like, yeah, I try.
Once you see, it just takes one time. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee
Even
it
if you
anymore.
try, you can't. Like, it just will replay in your mind. And it just takes that tad little bit of light for them to see that bit of information, and boom, something starts shifting.
Yeah, you just start questioning everything you do.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute.
I
I have a choice here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I actually have control about what I'm about to believe, what I'm thinking right now. I can challenge my own thoughts right now.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Or when your thought patterns start to go, then you can just say, no, you need to stop. That's not even accurate.
Stop
it's not.
it.
Yeah, stop it.
So here's the thing. And speaking about our thoughts, don't censor your thoughts when you're doing this. It's okay to choke people out in your head as long as you don't act out on it. You know what I mean? It's okay to tell people out on your head as long as you don't react to it and act out on it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have to be honest with yourself. And if that's what's going through your head, then identify it and say, okay, I want to choke this person out. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. But at least like, okay, it's getting to the point where I'm feeling like this. What do I do now? Don't censor it. Don't try to be nice about it and be like, oh, no, I didn't think that. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. don't lie. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Because a lot of people try to do that, especially when I was working with some people. It's like, and I'd be like, be honest with yourself. If you're saying, what the fuck, on your head, say it. Write it down on the paper so you can identify it and say, hey, that's exactly what went through my head.
Yeah.
But some people are like, no, I don't want to do that. No, be honest. Be honest with yourself.
Yep. Yeah.
How important is it not to identify as the thought itself? Because who is the thought in reality, right?
Right.
It's not us.
No.
It's not our soul. So how important is it to identify I am not the thought that I'm having?
I think that goes exactly what I just said. You know what I mean? That's your brain. That's your brain talking to you. That's you having a conversation with yourself. And knowing that just because this thought is in your head or you're thinking this, you're not supposed to do the first thing that comes to your mind. A lot of people are very impulsive. Yeah. And you'll hear it a lot. I'm impulsive. Well, yeah, I know you're impulsive, so let's slow it down. I can't. Yes, you can. Slow it down. And it's like, no, I can't. So you have to know that a thought is just a thought, and that's what it is. That's not you. Like you said, it's a conversation you're having with yourself. That's not who you are. And how we handle it, then that comes in that comes in the next stage, but number one is thoughts are crazy, man. We have millions of thoughts that go through our head on a daily basis, and we can sit here, the four of us, look into a room through a glass mirror or a window, and all four of us will have a different perspective of what's going on in that room.
Yeah.
And that's just four of us. We could put 100 of us and it'd probably be 100 different things. Some of them might have some relations, but I could tell you that word for word, there will be one the same. And that's just what we got to understand with our brain is that our mind is talking to us and it's telling us certain things about us. That's not who we are. That's not who I'm supposed to be. If I don't want to be that person, that's not who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
But when it's positive and when it's reinforcing to myself, then maybe I do want to be. And that's when I act on it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Or someone who can say, I'm impulsive. I'm impulsive. I think even that, and even if you really like step back and look, I think even that in itself is them realizing as a second person, like, I am impulsive. Like, that part of me is impulsive. Exactly. You just realize that part is impulsive. You just said it yourself.
Yes.
Like, now if they didn't even realize they're impulsive, can't even say that. But the moment they can say, well, I'm just an impulsive person. Oh, well, then there's two thoughts right there.
Yeah.
There's the impulsive one, and then there's the one that's saying,
right behind
you're
it.
impulsive, right?
Don't go with number one.
Yeah, don't go with number one, So just there in itself, you already aware that there's a thought that makes you feel that way. And so, even that in itself is just so crazy, though, when you start to really think about your thoughts and how it controls you, and you have full power of all of it. Like, you are in control of yourself, of everything. And like you said, it's okay to have your thoughts and talk to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I do it every day.
All the time,
Sometimes I'll be walking in the store
Yeah.
talking to myself, and I'll tell the person, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm just talking to myself.
Yeah.
You're just telling the thoughts, calm down.
Yeah. But that person probably looking at me like, this dude's crazy. Yeah.
Maybe.
A little bit.
There's an author that I read. He has great books, and one of them is he teaches on how to be the observer of your thoughts. He's Michael Singer. I can't remember the name of the book right now, but he starts the book by saying that there is a voice in all of our minds, right? That says all these crazy things. He's like, and actually, if that person was an actual person, you probably wouldn't even be friends with that person. He's like, and if you're denying it, he says, he's like, pay attention next time you're walking around someone and you think, oh, that person's crazy. But who's really crazy?
Right.
Like, you're talking, there's a voice saying that the guy is crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So he talks about all that, and I thought that was interesting. That he's like, that voice in our mind is a lunatic. He says, you would not even be friends with your own voice.
Right?
And I'm like, that's so true.
Yeah.
I have a saying that I say, everybody's a little bit weird. Everybody has a weird thing to them, And I'll have a conversation sometimes with my wife, and we'll be sitting there talking. And she'll be like, yeah, so-and-so. And then I'll just give her this look. And she's like, I know, they're weird, right? And I was like, yeah, I mean, what do you want me to say? I said, we all have weird. I said, people might think I'm weird, but I think we all have a sense of weirdness to ourselves because we're all unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And now to kind of bring all of this together, how can someone begin to restructure negative thought patterns? How important is it to restructure the negative thought patterns and create a mindset shift? How impactful is that?
It's very impactful. It's very impactful. And how do we work on it is you either put it on paper or you record yourself, as funny as it sounds, because you have to see it. Just because you tell me something, sometimes I'm not going to see it. It's not until I put it on paper. So we had a paper that would have thoughts, feelings, and actions. And you would write down a scenario. Something happened. Something triggered a scenario. And then you would write down all your feelings, all your emotions. And then, what was your thought process with every feeling? So this emotion brought this thought. This emotion brought that. And identifying that. And then, as well as after you identified all your thought process, now you would jump over to so if I thought like this and I reacted on it, what am I going to do? What's going to be my reaction to this? And once you start seeing that, you start seeing how weird we really are, but that's where I say, you don't censor your thoughts. You want to see them so you can see what your best friend is telling you in your head, but it's amazing. It's amazing to see how we think sometimes. And you're just like, wow, I really thought that right now. Yeah, you sure did.
Yeah, you're seeing it play out, and you're like, oh shoot.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
I think like that. But I think so to answer your question is you have to put it in paper. If you want to record yourself, you can. But I think once you start putting it in paper and do like an exercise like that, we'll say, okay, so I got upset yesterday. Why did I get upset? And then put the scenario that made you upset, write down all your emotions that came when that situation happened. What was your thought process after you thought those emotions, and what did you do? What could you have done, and what happened at the end? So once you start seeing that is when you can actually see, okay, so instead of just punching somebody in the face, I could have just walked away, or I could have just gone away. I could, so it's just, it's putting it into, that's where your work comes in, is seeing it. You got to see it firsthand. Because sometimes, most of the time, we're not going to believe people that come up to us and say we're crazy, right? We're like, no, you're crazy. I'm not crazy, right?
Yeah, for sure. Can you share one of the ways you did that personally? Like one that you still use to this day?
So let's go back to the one I shared at the beginning. It was about opening the doors for people or letting people cut in front of you in the car. It would literally bug me. It would literally bug me. But it wasn't until I stopped, I thought the process. And I read this book. I'm trying to remember the name of the author and the name of the book, but it was talking about paradigm shifts. And it shares a story about this man who's in the subway with his 3 children, and his children are just going crazy. They're just jumping over the seats and bugging into people's bags. And this man is looking at him like, dude, aren't you going to grab your kids? And the man just has his hands in his face and just kind of like in deep thought. And the kids are going crazy. So I guess finally when they get off the subway, the guy goes, hey, man, you mind grabbing your kids? And he goes, sorry. He goes, I apologize. He goes, I just don't know how to tell them that their mother just passed away. So that shift, you know what I mean? It's just the paradigm. She's like, how do you, it's just like, we don't know what people are going through unless we know that person, So for me to sit here and judge and expect false expectations, somebody to acknowledge me and say thank you, or I don't know what kind of news that person just got when they were walking into the store when I let them cut in front of me, So it wasn't until I slowed everything down, and I started taking still pictures of my brain. Okay, why am I thinking like this? Why does this bug me? Who do I think I am? Because when we become that person, when we become narcissists and it's about me and it's about what I want and this and that, it's, don't you know who I think I am? And it's like, no, you're not that person, dude. Relax, And it's not till you humble yourself and you humanize everybody. That's the big thing. We got to humanize each other. That I started seeing things like, okay, you're welcome, and obviously as a courtesy, I still hold the door open. I smile. Whether you want to smile at me or not, that's fine. But I'm going to smile and do my part.
Yep.
For sure. Oh, wow. What, before we get into closing, what has been your fight behind changing negative thoughts? I know you mentioned your dad. Do you believe that that's been your number one?
Yeah. So, a lot of the times I tell people my father, obviously he showed me a lot of great things. And I always tell people my father showed me how to be a dad and how not to be a dad. And my biggest battle in life is making the cycle of life better for my children and being a better dad, like fixing, seeing something and fixing something that I was brought with and trying to fix that cycle. So that cycle keeps getting better and better as the generations start coming, because it's so easy to get caught up in the cycle of, well, that's just the way life is. And that cycle just stays the same. There's nothing that's going to progress in that cycle. So I myself challenge myself to say, okay, how can I make this cycle for myself better? But in reality, it's going to be for the generation that come after me, for my children and my family, whatever.
Oh,
Yeah, that's amazing, because it starts from that stems from your childhood. That's where it's coming from,
Yes.
And that's where a lot of these things that you talked about and you mentioned, like the anger, the narcissist, all these things that people deal with. And I'll go more, I guess, lean more over towards the man, women too, but man, everything that they had to, like all the seeds that were planted in your guys's minds since you guys were born, and your dads, your moms, the just the beliefs and all that stuff. You're just kind of like that's the stuff that for me, I think men have to struggle with, and it's harder for you guys to have to deal with, to have to talk about it. And oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought, but what I'm talking about is like how it affects how it comes from, like your stems from your childhood. So that's one of the things that when you talk to when you're coaching, that's what I was wanting to say, is do you mention the beliefs? Do you mention like the childhood traumas? Do you talk about that, or do you, because we can talk about anger and how to deal with anger issues, right? But when you start saying like you put scenarios and you want them to start figuring out like where their anger comes from, do you ever bring it back to that, to the so they know where it stems from, that it can stem from childhood?
It comes more to on a personal level, like if it's like, for example, in coaching, if it's a young adult that is not getting it or is very resistant towards getting direction or doing something, that's when I have to pull them to the side and do more of a one-on-one with them and kind of share more on a personal level. Overall with coaching, it's finding the way to make them all understand, because sometimes sometimes it's 14, sometimes it's 30.
True.
So you can't generalize.
You have a group. You have groups.
So you're trying to find the way to reach all of them. So what works? And some of us are visual, some of us we're audio, so it changes. So it's finding the balance that's going to help you try to enhance everybody. And if you don't get there, and if you have that one that's pushy, that one's the one you pull to the side and say, hey, let me talk to you real quick. Let's have a conversation.
Let's go deeper. That's when we go deeper and try and find out where it comes from. I love that though, like being able to pinpoint like your anger, your triggers, and like
anger's a good one. Oh my God, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
You will definitely come back.
Anger is a good one, especially in like, you know what I was gonna say, especially for men, but I mean, I think we mentioned one time how like we talked about how las tóxicas ahorita, that's a thing right now, right? And that's like all comes from like there's so much anger, But I feel like people just stick to that emotion, and that's the only emotion that they feel.
That's what I was telling you earlier about the boss bitch, how you said it's society. Society embraces it, right? It's just like society's embracing tóxica because it's the cool thing to do, right? And it's like, wow, we're kind of distorted as a society in itself, right? Like, okay, you want, I don't know. It's weird. Yeah.
Keep adding more and more layers. Next year will be another word, another cool thing, and distort even more.
Well, talking about layers, Shrek, right? The movie Shrek. I don't know if you guys can go back to Shrek. Shrek tells Donkey that he has layers.
Yeah.
Right? That's us human beings.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're so covered in layers that we don't want nobody to see what's going on with us.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not until you start peeling those layers and start seeing the real you that you're like, man, I need help.
Yeah.
And sometimes anger is the only layer you're allowing others to see. Yeah. That's the one you feel safe showing others. Because if you go deeper, my God, there's more. Yeah. There's deeper stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
and I'm and I love the fact that you mentioned like you wanting to be a better dad to start creating better cycles for your kids and the new generations coming, right? Because I think a lot of people hear breaking cycles, right? Breaking the toxic cycles, continue, but we are so ingrained that I don't know, have you? But I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot of people say things like, "Oh, I was raised this way, and I'm perfectly fine. My kids can."
Look at what happened to me. Yeah.
This is how I was raised. And you kind of like throw that onto your kids, like because you were raised that way. But then you're out there saying like, "Oh yeah, and we're good," But it's like, are you really?
Yeah, no, it happens a lot. Oh my goodness, that happens so much. And some people are like, well, I'm okay with myself. And I was like, okay, are you really okay with yourself? That's just how I am. It's like, okay, well, to each their own. And obviously, we're all going to get our own. But sometimes, like you said, we see it and we're like, you're not okay with yourself. And it's like, no, this is the way I am. And that's it. So I'm going to be. And breaking cycles, you can break if you think back and we start digging, there's a lot of cycles. There's a lot of cycles that happen in our lives that we're just like, okay, I want to break this cycle. I want to make this cycle better.
Yeah.
And that can be a conversation for another situation, because that's one that I use a lot.
Yeah.
Breaking cycles. Yeah.
We love that too. That's always been our thing. I think we kind of always go back to that, especially when we have kids,
Right.
So we kind of just, I think as we're going through this journey, we are learning so much more. And then we're aware of something else that we're like, oh shoot, we're doing this too, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah.
So it's like never ending. But the awareness is amazing. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But yeah, I think there's so many topics that we can talk about.
Yeah, we had an overview today of a lot.
Yeah.
I definitely want to come back and talk about anger.
My God.
I love it.
Anger's a great one.
Yeah.
It's a great topic we could go to. And before we close, Coach Leo, I am a firm believer that everything is happening for us, not against us. What does negative thought patterns teach us about us in a light perspective, in a positive perspective?
Personally, I think it teaches us where we don't want to go, where we don't want to be. We don't want to be in that dark circle, but it comes with awareness. Once again, that's a big word here today. It comes with awareness. It teaches us, once again, because that knowing that I'm going to a negative thought process is me not filtering my thoughts and seeing that I'm thinking this toxic thought. I'm thinking of going down this route and it's slowing it down and saying, I don't want to go down that road. So it's teaching me to see the places I do not want to be in. I don't want to be there. And sometimes we've been there before and we don't want to feel like that again. So once that negative thought pattern bumps up again, you're just like, you should know, obviously, that I didn't like it the first time, so I'm probably not going to like it the second time. So it's teaching us where we don't want to be.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. If you had somebody in front of you right now, because I'm sure we have listeners that are caught in a very deep negative thought pattern place, what is one piece of advice that you could give that person that's really, really struggling in the dark right now?
Well, number one is accept help. Because sometimes when we're in that circle, we just think we're just there and we're not going to come out of it. Number one is help and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think you said it that, we're here today because we were supposed to be here today. Something in this world said we're going to be here today talking about this topic today. And I'm a firm believer about that. That I really believe that. So somebody that's struggling today is you're not alone. Number one, there's a lot of people out here that care about you, that want to help you. And all you have to do sometimes is pick up a phone or tap the shoulder of that person sitting next to you, because we never know where we're going to get help. I've had hour-long conversations at a coffee shop. It's just like, I overhear somebody and there I go chismoso. Oh, what about this, guys? And here we go, And so just know that there's help out there. There's a lot of people that care for that individual. And you're a beautiful person.
Yeah.
And we're, just know that all you got to do is ask for help.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And like I probably would say for like a man that other than asking for help, what do you think is something words of encouragement around like them breaking open and showing a little bit of vulnerability and saying like, this is probably not okay, but how do they go about like starting to?
It's the biggest thing is it's okay to feel like you're going against the grain.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel that you're going against what you're used to.
Yeah.
Because once again, we don't like change. So the way it is, because that's the way it is. No, it's not. It's okay to go against it. And if people don't like it, then they don't like it. Mm-hmm. It's okay. And I think that goes back even to family. Because sometimes family sees you change. Oh, you think you're all bad now. You don't even want to talk to me. You don't even want to come see me. And it's like, well, no, it's because my mental health is a little bit more important than,
Yes.
And it's for a man, it's okay to say that. I love you. I care for you, but sometimes it's better for me to be over here.
Yeah.
So it's okay to go against the grain and it's okay to feel weird. It's okay.
Yeah, embracing the discomfort, huh?
Yeah.
That comes with change.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of, that's one of the things one of my coaches used to tell me, you're not used to embracing discomfort. You think discomfort is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I was never thought of it until he mentioned it. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
It's like leaning into the discomfort, allowing myself to feel like the discomfort.
Yeah.
That's where the most growth and the transformation can happen, is us allowing us to be vulnerable, to to just allow ourselves to feel what comes
Yeah.
with
One of my mentors, she used to tell me, there's nothing constant in this life but change. That's the only thing that every day, you know?
Yep, that's so true.
For sure. Wow. It's been a great conversation, Coach Leo.
I love it.
You.
I love it. Thank you
so
guys.
much.
It was a pleasure being here with you guys. I really want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for inviting me. It was an awesome conversation. And hopefully we can have a couple more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You're invited whenever.
I don't know if you knew, but like when we started our podcast, it was like geared for women. And, and that's what
I was reading up on it. And as I saw the women, I was like, wait a minute here.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what we were like doing. We're like, okay, women empowerment. I think we really need it. Somewhere along the line, we're just like, wait a minute. We're just getting all these like different things were happening that were like, it was involving more men and people reaching out to her. And then we just started talking and we're just like, how do we just like try to help the female when men are part of our lives?
Right.
We have dads, we have brothers, we have boyfriends, we have husbands, we have, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
The men are always going to be a part of our lives. So how do we try to just like say, females here, be more aware, empower yourself, but then the men are not, I mean, I know that everybody has their way of finding their own, whatever they need to help, but we just said like, there's just no way we can it has to be, a balance.
And I think, like you said, this is empowering women because they're getting the perspective of the other side. You know what I mean? So when your husband is acting a certain way, or your boyfriend or your brother, your dad or whatever is saying things or acting, you're like, you might be going through something right now.
Yeah. And we love that. That's exactly what we want. We want men to feel comfortable listening, and we hope that they pick something up, right? That even clicks, that kind of like lights like a fire under the ass,
You know what? That's a great point that you say, because, and I used to tell this to people, because they used to come into an hour and a half long session, 2 hours, 3 hour session, whatever. And they'd be like, well, you just gave me a bunch of information today, just like today. We've probably been talking for about a little over an hour now. And people are like, that's a lot of information for me to retain. And you got to understand that just like a basketball player has to shoot the ball every day to be a good shooter, we have to be doing these things in our lives every day, practicing as well. We have to be, and it's practice and practice and practice. You're not going to pick it all up in the first day. You're not going to wake up today and say, I'm a changed person, and you're a changed person,
No.
because we have hiccups. We have hiccups, and I've had hiccups. I had some bad hiccups on the football field over being a parent. Almost wanted to hit another coach, and I'm just like, man, like I came out of character. And after that, I was like, wow. So understand that you're going to have faults, you're going to have mistakes, but this is a work in progress.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Oh man, great conversation. Thank you so much, Coach Leo, for your time and for accepting our invitation and being here and sharing your wisdom with our listeners. We hope to have you many more times. We hope you say yes to us again. And
well, thank you guys very much. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, guys. I hope you guys are done with your Christmas shopping.
Yes. Finally, yes.
Because it's right here.
I know.
It's here.
Tomorrow.
It's here tomorrow. But thank you guys once again. And good stuff. I like to see what you guys are doing. It seems amazing work. I think there's never enough of this, because it's always good to hear different perspectives. So keep doing the good work, guys.
Thank you.
And as always, you can find us at Unlocking Our Code Podcast. You can find Lou at The Plug by Revive, and you can find me at Transform Your World Within. So we hope to see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.